region did hold their prayer vigils, of course, in memory of those who lost their lives during the anti-government demonstrations. Now, as well, today, rather, let me take you back. Yesterday, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga talked about Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu being in the country at President William Ruto's invitation to of course, oversee the talks between Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, today, State House spokesperson, that is Hussein Mohamed, said Samia Suluhu, the President of Tanzania, was not in the country under the invitation of President William Ruto. Now, that is one thing that we'll be talking about tonight, including, of course, the vigils that have been held not only in Nairobi, led by Raila Odinga, but across the counties in the Republic of Kenya, led by various leaders, including in Siaya County, Kakamega, Mombasa, Kajiado, and even Nakuru. Now, remember, you can watch this particular bulletin live across all our social media platforms at Lookuptv on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, as well as YouTube. Now, I am Ian Keitani. Our sign language interpreter is Josephine Uko. First of all, let's have a look at what's making headlines tonight.
Tonight on The Insight, a moment of silence for the departed. Azimio leaders and supporters hold vigil for the victims who died during protests as they castigate the police for using excessive force. Manning the city. Police maintain high security in different parts of the city despite Azimio suspending Wednesday protests. And scrumptious mushroom mill turns deadly, killing 3 children in Kilifi County.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this particular evening. Like I said, you can watch us live across all our social media platforms. Let's begin our bulletin. And civil society organizations, of course, are calling on the government to sit down with the opposition and hold talks ahead of as the tension in the country continues to rise. Now, of course, Azimio leaders visited victims of police brutality in various hospitals across the country before holding prayers at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Foundation in Nairobi. Now, the leaders have condemned the police for use of excessive force on their supporters and having vowed to seek justice for the victims of course, police brutality both locally and internationally, as our reporter Henry Tende now files.
The first day of opposition coalition's prayers and vigil for supporters killed and injured in the coalition's demonstrations across the country began with the leaders led by Raila Odinga visiting the Mama Lucy and Kenyatta hospitals where some of the victims are recuperating. Later in the day, the leaders congregated at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Foundation in Nairobi to pay respect for over 30 lives lost in the protests. Emotions ran high as candles were lit and wreaths laid beneath this banner that had pictures of some of those who met their death allegedly in the hands of police. Speakers here making their anger known, castigating the police for the heinous murder.
Tumeshangaa sana kuona ya kwamba taifa hili linaongozwa na uongozi ambao haufuati katiba, uongozi ambao hauangalii maadili ya Wakenya, maadili ya kwamba Mkenya lazima awe na haki ya kuishi. Hakuna ruhusa ya kumuua mtu yoyote ama Mkenya yoyote. Leo nasikitika kuona vijana wetu, vijana zaidi ya 50 wakipigwa marisasi, wakiuawa, wamekuwa tortured. Ajabu ni kwamba wanaowapiga marisasi ni Wakenya wenzao.
However long it takes, those who are responsible for these unfortunate and premature deaths shall be held to account.
Professor Kithure Kindiki, who has been vocal instructing the police to stand firm in dealing with the demonstrators, receiving bashing from Azimio leaders.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki, I don't know what has gone to him, seems to love that brutality and takes pride in it. He had offered some more and heavier dose of brutality and gunfire today, despite our announcement that we would only be holding vigils in honor of the victims.
Kazi kazi ya kuua vijana wadogo, kazi ya kuua kina mama, kazi ya kuua wazee. Jamani, ni Wakristo wa aina gani hao? Ni Waislamu wa aina gani? Ni Biblia gani mnaoisoma inaoshurutisha kuua na kutoa roho za watu? Ni Kurani gani mnaoisoma inaoshurutisha kutoa roho za watu na kuua watu? And yet you call yourselves Christians, and yet you call yourselves Muslims.
The opposition team is standing firm that all those involved will be held to account one way or the other.
We pray that the fair and just God will enable Professor Kindiki to live long enough to be able to witness justice being done to these victims of state-sponsored brutality. In the fullness of time, justice will have to be done. Justice is the only way to ensure peace and stability in our country.
The team is also calling on the international community to take a keen interest in Kenyan situation. This to make sure police brutality is highlighted and condemned.
Professor Kindiki must make no mistake. We will pursue justice locally and internationally for these injured and slain heroes. These people who have been shot in cold blood, in cold July, are heroes and patriots. All they were asking for is to get a fair, just, and caring nation where their complaints are taken seriously as an attempt to create a more perfect nation. We will continue praying for and pleading with the international community and all its institutions, especially those in the field of justice, democracy, and human rights, to stand with Kenyans against a regime gone rogue.
Azimio team says their prayers and vigil for the departed souls will continue tomorrow before an interdenominational prayer on Friday, where the coalition will announce the way forward in regards to protests.
On Friday, we shall also announce the next steps forward with our anti-tax protest. Let's make no mistake. Kenyans are still hurting, and we shall not relent until this regime acknowledges this grim reality of suffering and agrees to repeal the infamous Finance Act.
Henry Tende, Lookuptv.
Apologies for the mix-up. Of course, that was a story of the Azimio la Umoja leaders who led the, of course, candle-lighting vigils here in the capital, Nairobi, for the fallen victims of the Azimio la Umoja anti-government demonstrations. Now, still on those particular vigils, and as Raila Odinga led the Azimio la Umoja vigil for fallen victims of the anti-government demonstrations here in the capital. Various counties across the country joined the opposition in saying a prayer for the victims. Now, during the prayers, police came under fire over excessive use of force meted on the protesters while lamenting the high cost of living. Let's have a look at that particular story.
Siaya County. Governor James Orengo led the prayers for the victims of the anti-government demonstrations, insisting that the finance bill must be repealed entirely.
The condition for any meaningful negotiation is that all the provisions of the Finance Act and the Finance Act in its entirety must be repealed. Don't be mistaken, we are not looking for half a loaf. We are looking for the whole loaf because Raila won the election. And I can tell you, if today they open the server, we would know who won the election. But we know the guilty are afraid, and that is why you do not want to open the server.
The first-time governor also cautioned President RUTO over going against the provisions of the constitution.
We are saying to the RUTO government that this constitution that we fought for, the 2010 constitution, protects life and property, and the duty of the state is to protect life and property. And the events of the last 3 weeks shows that you do not have the capacity to defend the people of Kenya who are demonstrating peacefully.
In Kisii County, Azimio supporters gathered in solidarity with their fallen counterparts. The seemingly enraged residents lamented over the high cost of living, while calling on the Interior CS Kithure Kindiki to respect the Constitution.
Mr. Kindiki, sisi ni wamama. Ongea na vijana wako, wameua watu wetu bila hatia, watoto wetu wamekufa kwenye mochari wamelala, na si vizuri. Maandamano iko kwa katiba, na sisi hatujaribu kitu ya mtu.
Maandamano sio ya Raila. Maandamano ni ya Wakenya. Watu wameumia ni Wakenya, sisi ndio tumeumia. Tunapoandamana si ati tunafuata, si ati tunasikiza maneno ya Raila. Sisi wenyewe ndio tumeumia. Tena kitu kingine, wewe Mr. RUTO, tulikuchagua na wewe ni president. Ni nini inaweza fanya usisikie maoni yetu?
Same scenes were witnessed in Lurambi constituency, Kakamega County, with residents alleging that hired goons were paid to maim and kill opposition supporters.
Wetu wa Kenya si hao walikuwa wanafanya hiyo kazi. Tuko na habari kuna majambazi wale walikuja wenye walikuwa natumika kuua watu yetu. Kwa sababu maskari ni mandugu zetu na hawezi fanya mambo kama hiyo. Kwa hivyo tuko pamoja, tunaomboleza pamoja na Raila Amolo Odinga kama party leader wetu. Moja hata kwa hii mambo ya maandamano ni vile kulikuwa na shida kidogo tu ile ilifanya maandamano ikukua Kakamega, lakini hiyo shida ishasolviwa. Sasa tuko pamoja, hata baba akiita maandamano kuanzia kesho, sisi tuko na yeye kwa barabara.
In Mombasa County, prayers were held as residents blamed the police for the deaths witnessed.
Wakati tuko hapa tunaomboleza, we are not forgetting, but we can forgive that these people were killed by police officers. Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, wewe ndio kinara wetu. Usisahau wale walikufa, usisahau wale waliumia. Uenda report the people with greatest responsibility with International Criminal Court ama any other authority ambayo can reign of them.
The activists led by Bradley Ouna called out President RUTO for mutilating the Constitution in a bid to return to one-party state.
Kati President Moi alikuwa president wa Kenya, ilikuwa ni wakati hatuwezi tukazungumza na uwezi ukasema shida yako. Wakati tuko ni 21st century, we should be given time and right to talk. We will not allow Kenyans to go back there. As kama young mothers, kama youth, lazima tusimame kidete na tuangalie hii Kenya yetu isirudi huko nyuma mahali tumetoka. Tumekuwa na constitution ambaye imetualao tuzungumze, useme haki yako. Kama vile wenzetu na sisi tuliondoka nje, tukisema gharama ya maisha imepanda juu, lakini unapata mwingine ambaye amepewa directive kwamba akisema umuue, tunasema hiyo haitawezekana hapa.
Those Kenyans from various counties lamenting about the high cost of living and of course paying tribute to their fallen counterparts. Now, the Nairobi Central Business District and its environs witnessed calmness today morning with heavy security and checkpoints at different places, including near Status Nairobi, in anticipation of the Azimio Vigil. Now, unlike last week when the businesses were stalled due to the demonstrations, business people went about their activities as usual.
Unlike last week's demonstration marred with chaos in parts of the country, the capital Nairobi was exceptionally calm with a number of civilian security personnel keeping an eye ahead of the Azimio Vigil.
Kazi iko chini juu abiria wengi wameogopa kutokelezea juu wanadhani kuna kitu maybe inaweza tendeka. So usafiri iko chini na hatujaona kitu yoyote mbaya, lakini kuna tension ya watu kuogopa. Juu hata hapa ukiangalia town vizuri kuna baadhi ya mapolisi wako hapo wako kando.
Business slowly regaining normals away from the uncertainty accompanied with the demonstration days of last week.
Kenya hatujui maandamano, lakini siku ya leo kuna peace, wateja wakuje tuwabebe, wafanyi biashara wakuje tufanye kazi.
Leo ilikuwa imesemekana ni siku ya watu kupoa, wache kando kwenye huko umetulia. Usiandamane, usirushe mawe. Tulia hapo kwenye huko na mshumaa yako na uendelee na kazi yako.
As the Azimio faction marked the day with a vigil session in memory of those who lost their lives and the injured, tension still lingers affecting business operations. Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Thank you very much, Stanley Lugaria, for that particular story. Now, Interior Principal Secretary Kithure Kindiki, as of course, well, beg your pardon for that. On that particular note, we'd like to take a break. We'll be back with more stories on this particular bulletin.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
The county government of Nyeri, with approval of His Excellency the Governor, Mutahi Kahiga, has granted 100% waiver on all interest and penalty accrued on all outstanding land rates. Property owners in Nyeri County are advised to take advantage of the waiver period that starts from 30th June 2023 and ends on 28th July 2023 on condition that the principal rates are paid in full. Property owners are advised to obtain invoices from the Sub-County Revenue Office where the property is located and make payment by depositing cash or banker's check to a bank account. Take notice that once the waiver period lapses, the county government will institute all necessary measures to recover any unpaid rates and penalties, including repossessing the property.
Oh, thank you very much for staying with us. Interior Principal Secretary Raymond Omolo has today visited Bondo, one of the areas in Siaya County heavily affected by the chaos and violence during the Azimio protests last week. Now, while assessing the security situation, Omolo said the government is determined to bring to book all criminals involved in the demonstrations.
After a closed-door security meeting with local administrators and security teams in Bondo, Siaya County, Interior PS Raymond Omolo noted that the security situation in the area caught their attention after 2 people lost their lives, several injured, and a wanton destruction of property witnessed.
When people protest, of course, the constitution is very clear. They must be unarmed. It has to be peaceful. Anything to the contrary borders on criminal action. And whenever there are criminal actions, again, you go back to the same constitution. And we would be expecting all of you who are charged with the responsibility of maintaining law and order just to follow the law.
The PS further stated that last week chaos were perpetuated by criminals who take advantage of protests, saying that they will face the full force of law.
Yesterday, I did give a breakdown on what the effect of the demonstrations have been, and I think it will not help to start to regurgitate those numbers. But the point is that as a security agencies, we have taken the greatest hit in terms of casualties, in terms of injuries to officers, and it is something that we cannot allow to continue.
Earlier, Omolo visited Bondo Township Chief Walter Omolo, whose house was torched by rioters during the anti-government protest last week.
Participate in the demonstrations or in the processes that you undertake. And lastly, for me, is the use of violence to pass points or to communicate. It cannot be in this day and age that whenever there is a disagreement, whenever you are unable to persuade people to have your viewpoint, then you resort to violence. I dare say it shows the highest level of primitivity. Persuade me, persuade Kenyans to look at things the way you want, and if they don't agree, let them be. But it cannot be that if I don't agree with you as a PS, the only solution you have is to burn my house, or the only solution is to beat me.
Maven Getembe, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Thank you very much, Maven Getembe. Now, 3 children from Ketandewa village in Kilifi have died, while 7 others hospitalized with severe vomiting and general body weakness after consuming poisonous wild mushrooms. Now, Kilifi County Referral Hospital has confirmed the incident, stating that 2 of the hospitalized children are in critical condition. Neshen Mugasia with that story.
A somber mood has engulfed Ketandewa village in Kilifi after a sumptuous mushroom meal turned deadly. According to Christine Furaha, one of the family members, the children went to harvest the mushrooms in the nearby bushes, as was the norm, and were assisted by their parents to prepare the dish. Things took a turn after the children started developing heartburns and visited local dispensaries and chemists before their condition got critical, leading to the death of 3 as 7 others were hospitalized.
Hiyo huwa wanatunda tu kawaida kila siku, yani mvua ikinyesha, kawaida mvua ikinyesha watoto wanatunda, hata mama zao mara zingine wanaenda wakatunda. Sasa sijui hivyo zenye walienda wakatunda sijui ilikuwaje. Sijui ndio ilikuwa na sumu ama walikosea hiyo mti kutunda.
Kilifi County Referral Hospital Dr. Malik confirmed the incident, saying the kids passed away due to fulminant hepatic failure as a result of eating the poisonous mushrooms. He further stated that 5 children are currently in stable condition.
Akatapika na kuharisha. Asubuhi yake dadake naye akashikwa nao kuharisha na kutapika. Ilipofika jioni akapelekwa hospitali.
Hadasa Crystal, Lookuptv.
Jioni ya Jumamosi akapelekwa hospitali, kulikuwa hakuna daktari. Akaenda chemist akapata dawa. Aliporudi nyumbani siku huo ikazidi hiyo, akalala. Kesho yake asubuhi ilikuwa Jumapili, akapelekwa hospitali ya Bamba. Hali yake ilizidi.
Now on to the corridors of justice, and John Jomo Kenyatta, the son to former President Uhuru Kenyatta, has today moved to court to quash the decision of the Chief Licensing Officer and the Firearms Board to revoke his firearms license without following the due process set out in the Firearms Act. Waremo Kimani with the details.
I ask myself, what does this government want? Because if it wants me, the fact that I've been silent doesn't mean I'm scared. Come for me. What does my mother have to do with anything? What does my children have to do with anything? Kama shida yenu ni mimi, I'm here.
In the quest for justice, after DCI officers raided his home in search of weapons and revoked his license to own a firearm, Jomo Kenyatta, firstborn son to former President Uhuru Kenyatta, has today walked through the corridors of justice and challenged the decision made by the Chief Licensing Officer and the whole board on revocation of his firearm license. Jomo said that the process was initiated in bad faith and was contrary to the rules of natural justice, and the officers practiced what he termed as abuse of power. Through his lawyer, Fred Ngatia, John Jomo Kenyatta has defined that his firearm license is valid till April next year. He now wants the court to bar the Chief Licensing Officer and the Firearm Licensing Board from demanding his revocation of license and the surrender of his lawfully acquired weapons. Elsewhere, Busia Senator Okiya Omtatah has also moved to court in a bid to challenge the Finance Act. Omtatah today has filed evidence running into thousands of pages challenging the new tax law. Omtatah has accused the National Treasury for loading Kenyans with interest of loans borrowed without any corresponding development projects.
Of the pleadings the petitioners are relying on to make the case that to make the case on two fronts. One, that the process of making the budget was irregular and was done outside the law. And two, that the budget itself, the contents of the budget are to some extent fraudulent. There's what we call budgeted corruption within that budget, which if removed, then Kenyans will not have to pay through the nose, the way we are being forced to pay.
The senator stated that he had been offered a 200 million shillings bribe to stop the appeal. Meanwhile, the court has suspended the implementation of this Finance Act till further notice.
The budget-making process in Kenya is totally unconstitutional. It violates the Constitution. It violates the Public Finance Management Act. It violates the Public Finance Management Regulations 2015. And it violates many other laws that govern this country.
Weri Mukimani, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Kirinyaga County Government has established an exclusive fish market that will enhance the marketing system for fish in the county. The market, which has been established at Kiaga, will be the county's one-stop fish shop.
Farmers in Kirinyaga have a reason to smile after a fish market was launched. The facility will be the county's aggregation center for fish where domestic fish bulking. Preliminary processing will be carried out.
This is our new aggregation center for fish, which is coming up, and most of the farmers will benefit from this. We have organized our farmers, about 2,000 of them, in various groups, and these farmers will be brought together to form a cooperative, which will be Kirinyaga County Fish Cooperative. This fish cooperative will be responsible for running this aggregation center, which have been supported through Her Excellency Governor Anne Waiguru, to ensure that fish farmers are able to get benefit of their produce.
The center is part of the Sisha Kirinyaga program that aims at supporting farmers to increase their agricultural production and boost earnings for the farmers. The county government is supporting aquaculture development through provision of fish pond liners, fish fingerlings, fish feeds and extension services that will address post-harvest management and marketing of the fish.
We want to transform fish farming from just livelihood activity to commercialization thresholds. This means that our farmers will be able to increase the number of fish ponds to be done, at least 5 per each farmer. And also above that one, we are also supporting 3 community dams, one in Kangai, the other one in Jokeni, the other one in Dia. This also, we have supported these dams with the canoes. They're going to be provided with them, and safety gears for them to be able to undertake fishing activities in those dams.
Felista Wandia, a fish farmer from Kiambagadi village in Dia constituency, stated that the aggregation center is a welcome move that will save them from incurring post-harvest losses that occurs when they fail to secure market for the fish after harvesting. Another farmer, Joseph Wachira, lauded the move, saying that the cold storage at the aggregation center will go a long way in enabling him harvest and keep his produce fresh, preventing harvest losses. The County Executive Committee member for Agriculture, Dr. John Gachara, said that the center will also offer a hygienic environment.
In this place, we are going to have fish eateries. We are going to the kiosk that you can see around here. They are going to be open for fish eateries, where people can be able to order their fish in different categories they may wish.
On that note, we take a short breather. I'll be back with matters Samia Suluhu, whether she was in the country or not, and what next for Raila Odinga and of course President William Ruto. Don't go away.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
The county government of Nyeri, with approval of His Excellency the Governor, Mutahi Kahiga, has granted 100% waiver on all interest and penalty accrued on all outstanding land rates. Property owners in Nyeri County are advised to take advantage of the waiver period that starts from 30th June 2023 and ends on 28th July 2023 on condition that the principal rates are paid in full. Property owners are advised to obtain invoices from the Sub-County Revenue Office where the property is located and make payment by depositing cash or banker's check to a bank account. Take notice that once the waiver period lapses, the county government will institute all necessary measures to recover any unpaid rates and penalties, including repossessing the property.
Are you a junior secondary school, a college, a TVET institution or a university and you want to advertise your intake? Book now and advertise with us today on both Lookuptv and all our digital platforms. Call us today on 011 0430 158, 011 0430 158 or email us on sales@lookuptv.co.ke.
The future is hands-on, and Sensei College is at the front line of technical institutes in Kenya, offering practical and skill-based courses accredited by all concerned bodies, TVETA, NTSA and NITA. Sensei College offers driving and plant operator, cosmetology, fashion and design, mechanics, hydroponics and irrigation, installation, building construction, hospitality, photography and video production, electrical and electronics repairs, and ICT courses. Get free plant operator training when you enroll for plant mechanics, free driving when you enroll for motor vehicle mechanics, and free riding when you enroll for motorcycle mechanics. The requirement is an ID only, with intakes every first week of the month. We have 2 campuses in Nakuru and Nairobi. We provide meals and accommodation. Sensei College. My skills, my future.
What word can you tell those people who are in cross-culture marriage?
A cross-culture is a barrier, but you are not supposed to look that as if it's something that should separate you.
There are things now I used to see, but now when she came in my house, I start now studying her.
But that never made me to leave my wife.
Mostly there is a lot of pretending, but when you come together, pretending come off, and now you start living reality.
I thought after you stay for a period of time, that months, year, you are going to just have a baby.
Well, thank you very much for choosing to stay with us. And like I promised, it's now time to get to understand who is fooling who. From Raila Odinga saying that President Samia Suluhu of the Republic of Tanzania was in the country just to see Raila Odinga, or to sit down with Raila Odinga and President William Ruto down and have conversation on matters surrounding the country. We do know that there has been the anti-government demonstrations, and according to Raila Odinga, that visit by Samia Suluhu was under President William Ruto's invitation. Now, Raila Odinga said that all was in vain because President William Ruto did snub President Samia Suluhu. Now, today, State House spokesperson, that is Hussein Mohammed, said Samia Suluhu was not in the country, and every other president who comes into the country the trip is officially documented. Now, we get to understand who is fooling who. What is the state of the country? Raila Odinga did call off the demonstrations, saying they will hold candlelighting vigils in the country, of course, in honor of those who lost their lives during the demonstrations. And that happened today. That might be for this week. We don't know what will happen next week, because today, Kalonzo Musyoka did say that on Friday, they will, of course, announce to the country their next course of action. Now, that is what I'll be looking into tonight. And just to, of course, give you an overview of what, as well, former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta did say in regards to his relationship with the current president, that is William Samoei Ruto. This comes after last week his son's home in Karen, that is John Jomo Kenyatta, was raided allegedly by officers or government officers who are in search of guns. Now, the Kenya Kwanza administration lawmakers, most recently during the Kisii visit by President William Ruto, including Silvana Sosoro, and of course, Kimani Ichung'wah, did allude that the family of the former president was having guns, a number of guns, at least 23 in number. But former President Uhuru Kenyatta did say that the number of guns that his sons do have to their names is 6, 3 to each of the 2 sons. Now, that aside, we'll begin with the Samia Suluhu saga, President Samia Suluhu saga for that case. Because who is fooling who? Is Raila Odinga giving us, or being honest when he said, or was he being honest when he said President Samia Suluhu was in the country? Oh, that was incorrect, because today, Hussein Mohammed did say that is not true. I just want us to listen in to Raila Odinga and what he had to say yesterday in regards to the visit by President Samia Suluhu. Let's listen in.
The president from Tanzania came here 2 weeks ago at the invitation of President Ruto to mediate, and she was kept waiting, not from our side. We were available, but the other side was not available. She spent 2 nights here, and it was all in vain.
Well, Odinga, you've had clearly said Samia Suluhu was in the country to, of course, hold talks with President William Ruto and him. Now, the president himself evaded the talks of whether President Samia Suluhu was in the country under his invitation, or on his invitation as the head of state. And of course, everybody has poured cold water, including MP Kiaru MP Ndini Nyoro, who said that may not be true. Kimani Ichung'wah did say the same, and most leaders have, or did pour cold water on Raila Odinga's sentiments. Now, today, Hussein Mohammed, while speaking at State House Mombasa, alluded to the same. And of course, he echoed the sentiments of Kiaru MP Ndindi Nyoro. Before we go further, let's listen in to what Hussein Mohammed had to say.
Kila rais ambaye anakuja Kenya, or any president who comes to meet the president of Kenya, there are established protocols in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Okay? So they will communicate and they will handle all the protocol. And of course, we will know that a president or a visiting head of state or president has come to meet the president of the republic. Of course, that is not to say a president can come to a country or cannot come to a country for holiday or whatever. But for all the presidents that have come to meet the president of the Republic of Kenya, it has been documented. We have all seen that several heads of state have come to meet the president of Kenya through established protocols in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Hiyo ingine ndugu yangu aliyesema hiyo kitu, aliyesema alikuwa hapa, I think that is the best person to address that question to.
there you have it. There you go. Hussein Mohammed saying that indeed President Samia Suluhu of Tanzania was not in the country on President William Ruto's invitation. Now, who is fooling who? Because on one side, yesterday, after Raila Odinga made those particular allegations, President William Ruto was on his way to Tanzania. Now, why would President William Ruto invite his Tanzanian counterpart here in the country, then snub her, and then later on proceed to Tanzania to, of course, for a summit and, of course, hold talks with President Samia Suluhu of Tanzania in regards to the cooperation between the two countries? Now, let's assume maybe Raila Odinga is right. If Samia Suluhu was indeed in the country and it was to see of talks between, or to, of course, officiate talks between President William Samoei Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga in regards to the situation here in the country. Now, during the first phase of these demonstrations, Raila Odinga did call off the demonstrations after President William Ruto did agree that indeed we need to have talks on the issues that the opposition is raising. And of course, Raila heeded to the call, because after President Ruto addressed the country, Raila Odinga did call off the demonstrations. Now, after that, there was the formation of the bipartisan talks, the teams from both Kenya Kwanza, which is the ruling coalition, and the opposition coalition, led by, of course, MP Murugara, and of course, from the Azimio side, it was Rarieda MP Otiende Amolo. Now, while there was a tussle, and a complete tussle on the, of course, formation of these two bipartisan teams, because Azimio was arguing that we need to have stakeholders from all sectors in the country, because it is a national conversation. Now, when did we switch from it being a national conversation, because the issues that Raila Odinga was raising, he referred to them, and his coalition do say that it is, or these are issues affecting Kenyans. How then did we transition from holding talks with stakeholders from different sectors? Of course, that call was not heeded, because the bipartisan teams did include members of parliament and senators, or rather political leaders from both sides of the political divide. Now, how do we transition from having stakeholders from all sectors in the country to talks between President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga? Now, take you back to 2018, during the handshake. Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga did, of course, hold talks with the then President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. That gave birth to the handshake, which to today remains the bone of contention, because the Kenya Kwanza team do argue that it is because of the handshake that the country is where it is at the moment, economically for that matter. Now, Samia Suluhu was set to oversee talks between President William Ruto and Raila Odinga. No stakeholders, no nothing, just the two. This is, of course, if we are assuming that Raila Odinga was brutally honest when he said Samia Suluhu was in the country to oversee the talks. Now, what was the basis, or what would have been the basis of these talks? The last time here in the country, when a mediator from a different country came into the country to, of course, oversee talks between one party and the other, was in 2007. And that was based on the dispute that arose from the elections. Now, what would have been the basis? This is a question that you will help me answer. What would have been the basis of these talks? Because clearly, it wouldn't have been about the election and, of course, surrounding power and all that. The issues on the table by Raila Odinga are completely different. Of course, he has been touching on the reconstitution of the IEBC, but at the moment, we have a president in place. Back then, it was immediately after the elections when Raila Odinga and his team, which included the current president, Dr. William Ruto, said that their votes had been stolen, and there was no way that they would have allowed the then president, and of course, is now fallen, that is former President Mwai Kibaki, to take over power. That led to the, of course, grand coalition government. Now, if the talks were or would not have been based on the election outcome and, of course, any power sharing deals, what would have been the basis? cost of living, reconstitution of the IEBC, you name it. That is one question that we all don't seem to have the answer. Now, away from that, this, of course, is a different scenario altogether. And if at all Raila Odinga was honest, Samia Suluhu is coming to the country to solve the stalemate that we've been having since the beginning of the year. We've been having the anti-government demonstrations. People have lost their lives. Raila Odinga and his team, in a statement this week, of course, said, we are not going for demonstrations which were supposed to start today. They have issues that they want them to be addressed. Now, were those the same issues that Samia Suluhu, the president of Tanzania, was supposed to oversee between President William Ruto and Raila Odinga? I want us to just have a look at the, of course, key concerns of the opposition before we get to understand and, ask ourselves if those were the same talks or the same issues that Samia Suluhu was supposed to oversee in the talks between President William Ruto and Raila Odinga, the opposition chief. We'll have it here in a moment, the opposition's key concerns, and here we go. According to Raila Odinga, in yesterday's address to members of the fourth estate from of course, the international level from abroad, the first one was the high cost of living. Raila Odinga has been talking about the high cost of living for some time. The Finance Act is the second one. And by the way, Raila Odinga and his team do say that one unconditional request that they have is that the Finance Act be repealed completely or entirely, because Raila Odinga says that it is punitive. The taxes in here are punitive. Remember, top among the taxes that are being talked about is the 16% value-added tax. It was moved from 8% to 16%. So Raila Odinga says this Finance Act must be repealed entirely. Now, the reconstitution of the IEBC has been one bone of contention. Currently, we do not have the electoral body because the tenure of some of the officers, including the former chairperson, that is Wafula Chebukati, did end. And of course, remember, the other commissioners were suspended, the likes of Irene Masit. Of course, that owing to the outcome of the election, and of course, we remember that Wafula Chebukati did say that the other four commissioners wanted to, of course, divert the people's or subvert the people's will. Discrimination on appointments. Raila Odinga did mention these yesterday, saying that appointments in the President William Ruto's regime is tribal. So that most of the appointments do come from one community. And of course, there's been talks of shareholders in this government. Vocally, of course, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has been the one who's been spearheading the talks of shareholding. Raila Odinga has an issue with that, and he says that is one issue that must be addressed. The other thing is police brutality. And we'll look about police brutality in our next slide, but that is one thing that Raila Odinga, of course, has paid a lot of concern on, and that is part of the reasons as to why they did not hold the anti-government demonstrations today, not tomorrow or Friday, like it had been, of course, alluded to earlier. Now, the last one is the, of course, wing of opposition MPs. Raila Odinga is saying, and of course, that is in the constitution, that if at all you cross to the other side of the political divide, you ought to resign. We'll go back to the polls because you have now crossed to the other side, which is not of the other political party or political formation, which is not the same party that sponsored you into parliament. I want to take you back to the issue of police brutality. Now, ever since we started having the anti-government demonstrations, there have been destruction of property, loss of lives. That will lead us to the statistics from the anti-government demonstrations. Of course, that is in regards to the police brutality, the number of fatalities from those particular demonstrations. And I don't know if you can have that particular slide of the statistics from the anti-government demonstrations. And top among them is that yesterday, the PS for Interior, that is Raymond Omolo, did give statistics on the aftermath of the anti-government demonstrations. Now, the first one here is, according to Azimio, at least 50 people have lost their lives in the anti-government demonstrations. This, by the way, is the one point that gets us back to the issue of police brutality, because police have been on the spot for use of live bullets. That has, of course, brought about quite a number of the people who've lost their lives in these demonstrations, because some of them have been rather died due to gunshot wounds. Raila Odinga says that must be addressed. Now, according to a statement by the PS for Interior, that is Raymond Omolo, yesterday, one police officer, of course, also lost his life in the demonstrations. Now, 305 officers were injured in these particular demonstrations. 9 police stations were torched. At least 850 businesses were looted during these particular demonstrations. 99 buildings destroyed, at least 99 buildings destroyed, and 100 cases of assault. Now, these are the statistics from these particular demonstrations. But, of course, the key concern is the use of live bullets by the police, and Azimio Lomoja, as leaders, and even the supporters who are today paying tribute to their fallen victims across the country, said that, and specifically from Mombasa, they, of course, residents of that county, those who came out to pay tribute to their fallen victims, did urge Raila Odinga not to forget those who have lost their lives in these particular demonstrations. And he urged Odinga to, of course, do what he has to do to ensure that their families do get justice. Whether it means going locally through the courts here in the country, or even going internationally. And they mentioned the, of course, International Criminal Court, that is the ICC. Talking about these fatalities from anti-government demonstrations, you'd, of course, remember the case of baby Pendo, who lost her life at a very tender age due to these particular demonstrations. Now, the key concerns from the Azimio team, which includes police brutality. Are these the same concerns that President Samia Suluhu was supposed to oversee in the talks between Raila Odinga and President William Samoei Ruto? Now, why President Samia Suluhu of Tanzania? Right here in the country, we only have a sitting president, William Ruto. The only retired president is President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who they don't see eye to eye with his predecessor. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta has been spearheading talks of peace in various countries here in the continent, including the Democratic Republic of Congo. He was always in the country, also the country, either in the DRC or Ethiopia, trying to mediate peace. And he was awarded for his efforts in, of course, ensuring that peace prevails. But here in the country, that might not be the case, because to some point, peace has been lacking. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and I want us to, of course, listen in to, not listen in per se, but get to see what former President Uhuru Kenyatta did say in regards to President William Ruto's administration, because he did come out to talk about the issues concerning or surrounding the country at the moment after his son's home was raided last week on Friday here in Karen. And former President Uhuru Kenyatta did say, and he told the current president, that is Dr. William Ruto, that you'll be in power for some time and you'll vacate. They say power is transient. You cannot be in power forever. And here we go. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta to President Ruto, and he said, power is fleeting and temporary. It is your work to run the country, not mine, even if I did not support you. That was not the only thing that former President Uhuru Kenyatta did say. He added something else. And he said, if you can go to the next one, former President Uhuru Kenyatta did say, he was asked if he can meet with President William Samoei Ruto, and he said, I can't invite myself to talk with him, but if he reaches out to me, he's my president. I will go. I went to Moi and Kibaki regularly to seek advice. Now this, you'd want to ask yourself, the last part of this statement, I went to Moi and Kibaki regularly to seek advice. Is this a coded message to President William Ruto? Because if they don't see eye to eye, President Moi and President Kibaki want to be with the Lord. The only retired president is former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Is he in some way saying, if you need advice, you will come to me? I'm the only retired president. Now, the big question is, where did the difference between Uhuru Kenyatta and President Uhuru Kenyatta start? Most significantly would be after the handshake in 2018. And from then, it proceeded or went ahead to former President Uhuru Kenyatta supporting Raila Odinga in the 2022 general elections, something that not only angered President William Ruto, the current president, but also his allies. And former President Uhuru Kenyatta was talking about how his former allies, people emmolded in politics, have now turned against him. Of course, Uhuru Kenyatta did support Raila Odinga. They lost. President William Ruto won. And from then, they've not been seeing each other eye to eye. You'd presume the last time they saw each other, at least publicly, was during the inauguration ceremony. Now, can their differences be mended? And can they read from the same script? Now that their government has, of course, said we did not invite or do not know that President Samia Suluhu was in the country, what does that mean? Will Raila Odinga and President William Ruto hold talks? And I want us to go to a tweet by President William Ruto yesterday after Raila Odinga did say that Samia Suluhu was in the country to oversee talks between Raila Odinga and himself. President Ruto took to social media via his Twitter account. And he, of course, talked about being ready to hold talks with Raila Odinga on whatever matter. And in fact, he said, to anything, at whatever time, and of course, at your convenience. President William Ruto has been on record and is on record saying, and you can see on that particular screen, is that this is what he said: my friend Raila Odinga, I'm off to Tanzania for a human capital meeting to harmonize the expansion of employment opportunities in our continent. I'm back tomorrow evening. I'll be back tomorrow evening, which is now today. And as you've always known, I'm available to meet one-on-one with you anytime at your convenience. Well, that is a tweet that most people again do say that is cryptic or coded, beg your pardon, but some of the leaders in the opposition camp were angered with President William Ruto's tweet. Top among them is the minority leader Opiyo Wandayi, who said, urged President William Ruto to stop being disrespectful to the former Prime Minister. He begged and he posed the question, why would you invite the former Prime Minister for talks at his convenience via a tweet on matters concerning national interests? And President William Ruto has been accused of being surrounded with hardliners. Some of the politicians who've been mentioned or who've been tagged as or referred to as hardliners include Kiaru Mpindi Ninyoro and Kimani Ichung'wah. Now, Kimani Ichung'wah replied to whatever President William Ruto did tweet. I'd want us to look into that particular tweet by Kimani Ichung'wah, because he's been very, very vocal talking about how they cannot allow Raila Odinga into government because the anti-government demonstrations does not really concern or does not really address or is not, brought about by the high cost of living, but Raila Odinga's hunger for power. And he said Raila Odinga does want to get into power via the back door. And Kimani Ichung'wah, via his Twitter account as well, said, and he says, now President William Ruto, everybody wants to meet you or to meet with you, even the one who 11 months ago didn't even want to shake your hand nor talk to you, now wants to call you his president. It is well, some progress. Happy that Baba has recovered from the flu, but when did he start working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or as State House spokesperson? That is Kimani Ichung'wah. And he's been termed or referred to one of the hardliners. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has been very, very vocal himself on whether President William Ruto will hold talks with former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. He's been vocal. He said, there's no way that is happening. We cannot hold any talks. And they've always rubbished any form of talks or dialogue or handshake between the two. Now, Raila Odinga yesterday did say that he's not interested in what is termed as nusu mkate. That is some other form of a grand coalition government where they can be able to share power. He said he wants the issues affecting Kenyans to be addressed. Now that State House has denied allegations of Samia Suluhu being in the country to oversee talks between President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Where does this leave us? President William Ruto has invited former Prime Minister Raila Odinga to, of course, hold talks with him at his convenience, at whatever time. He will clear his diary. Will the talks happen? Will President William Samoei Ruto finally hold talks with former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta? At least for the benefit of the country. Because every day when there are demonstrations, it is Kenyans who pay the price. Struggling Kenyans for that case. Businessmen and women. Now what next? I'll leave you with some food for thought. Like I said, well, President William Ruto hold talks with former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Then that might lead, because former President Uhuru Kenyatta did say that he's ready to talk to President William Ruto at whatever time. His only concern is if Ruto, the president, wants to talk to him. Now, will that happen? And will the three leaders, now that Uhuru says he's free to talk to Ruto if he's invited, and Ruto on the other side is inviting Raila Odinga for talks, will the three political supremos in the country sit down and talk? And what will be the fruits of those particular talks? And if at all a mediator is needed, can former President Uhuru Kenyatta then act as a mediator between the two, despite the fact that he supported Raila Odinga in the elections? Now, on this capacity, in his own interest, or in his own capacity as the former head of state. Now, finally, something that is of concern to everybody. Raila Odinga and his team have been talking about the unconditional repeal of the Finance Act. Will that happen? Because Raila Odinga said that is the first thing that must happen so that the talks can be termed as successful. Will it happen? And if not, what next? Will Azimio coalition, the opposition, go back to the streets? Or what will be their next course of action? Our plea is that Raila Odinga, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and the sitting President William Samoei Ruto can be able to sit down and talk, mend their differences, and ensure that everything is okay. Because at the end of the day, we only have one country, and we cannot continue to go the demonstrations way. We can listen to each other. We're brothers and sisters at the end of the day. But what will be the final call in this scenario? Thank you very much for joining me on this particular segment. On that note, we take a short breather. I'll be back with sports news. Now it's time to get sporty, and Shabana FC will be forced to play their FKF Premier League matches on an alternative ground. This is because the Gusii Stadium will be undergoing renovation. Now, Shabana, were the current National League champions or National Super League champions, were received in an heroic homecoming ceremony at the Gusii Stadium. By the way, Gusii Stadium is their home stadium, and Governor Simba Arati said that that particular stadium will be undergoing renovations due to flooding that comes during the heavy rains.
Flooding of the beach, we are set to embark on further renovation of the stadium to improve conditions and meet the standards. We are today rolling out massive online fans registration exercise to help enhance fan base for Shabana FC, locally and internationally, so as to boost the avenues for supporting going forward. As the earlier promised, the sponsor had sourced for Shabana is ready to sign for sponsorship of 20 million Kenya shillings.
20 million shillings is a huge boost for the Kisii-based outfit. Now, a group of youth in Kitengela, Kajiado County are using sports to curb the prevalence of drug abuse in that particular county. Now, the most popular game being Coco, a game that originated from India. Now, however, lack of playing grounds and few trainers are some of the challenges being faced by the youths playing that particular game.
Coco imeneka pazuri, sijaweza kuengage kwa miadarati ka idol. Mara mingi utanipata hapa hivi kwanza napiga shughuli, ama pale pia gym niko hapo tu napiga shughuli nikuwe fit. Thanks for Coco.
Have been here since na mchezo wote tunajaribu kukupanua mawazo uweze kukua, ati hautakuwa tu pale unachezea huu mchezo kama mwanarika wa pale tu nyumbani. You become an international mindset sports person. Kwa kuwa unaweza chezea nyumbani ama pia unaweza safiri ukauchezea huu mchezo nje. As a new sport, we have not had our stadiums set up in a way that they can embrace the new coming sports like Coco. We have been able to send some players to represent the country abroad. When we had an opportunity in Pune in India, where we got a player from Kitekoko and another one from Paradiso in Nairobi County to go and represent during the Ultimate Coco League trainings and exhibitions that were taken on.
Kenyan Premier League schedule for the 2023-2024 season is out. Now, the new season is expected to kickstart on the 26th of October. Now, the defending champions Gor Mahia will battle Batoto Bamungu, that is Sofapaka. Tusker will face Bandari FC, while FC Leopards will play Talanta FC in the opening week. Now, the new promoted teams, Shabana FC and Murangasel, will face each other on the 27th. Well, that particular story on the fixtures of the Kenyan Premier League brings us to the end of this particular bulletin here on Lookuptv. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Until tomorrow, do have yourself a lovely evening. And like always, God bless.